Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages. This episode is brought to you by Spotify and Anchor, your source for the best in music, podcasts, and more. You can also be someone who helps bring more to your life with Mysterious Goings On by being a listener supporter. Please click on the link in our show notes and you will be offered 3 tiers for support. We have a 99-cent per month tier, $4.99 per month, and $9.99 per month. You can buy it with Google Pay or use with a credit card instead. This helps keep the show going. I could use your support if you really enjoy Mysterious Goings On, and lots of you have since 2016. We'd love to keep going, and some listener support like you would be very, very helpful to me in keeping the show moving right along there. So, as I always say, at the end of every show, keep reading, but also keep listening, and please consider supporting Mysterious Goings On. Once there was a famous musician, I read an interview with him about 25, 30 years ago, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, to be creative at least, you've got to have pain in your life. And if you don't have any pain in your life, you need to go out there and get some. It struck me. I don't know what that struck me as. Is that being profound or silly or what? But I know one thing. I don't think anybody has to go get some pain. I think we all have pain. And I think to a degree we all have trauma. But maybe not on the same level as what we're going to discuss today with our guest. He's a guy who survived a suicide attack in Afghanistan, but found out that his traumatic experience there had helped him to see the person he'd been running from. All the drama that Harold Phifer faced in his past was never put to bed until he poured out his life story to a guy named Dylan on a Southeast Asian tropical beach. And we're going to talk about that conversation, which is chronicled in Surviving Chaos, How I Found Peace at a Beach Bar. Harold Phifer, welcome to Mysterious Goings On.
Thank you. How you doing yourself?
Doing all right. I understand trauma quite well, and we all have different kinds of trauma. But I was curious, particularly with Afghanistan at this recording being in the news, how are you doing today with the news? Are you into it, or are you shutting it out? How are you operating?
I'm still into it. Got to work with a number of Afghans and got to know them and actually say come close to them. And it's painful to know some of them may not get out or didn't get out. So, kind of dealing with that, feeling actually a little guilt, to be honest.
Do you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the people that work with us were not really part of the special immigration visa. And but a lot of what we did were involved with the military. It so happened to be the company we worked for, then connect, I guess, with NATO, I guess, something, whatever the politics of that. So they're struggling trying to get out. Some have. And knowing what may happen to them, your heart bleeds, they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And another thing, the politics of it, I hate to dig in it too much, but this was going to be ugly either way. That and it's tough for us being there. I mean, I bet you anybody you poll would say we really should be there.
Yeah. It would seem I'm something of a student of history, and it just seems like we didn't quite learn our lesson from some other things in our history. And that very somewhat cliched but true statement that Afghanistan is where empires go to die, because you just get mired in there. And and Harold, I'm just speaking as an outsider, did not serve, did not go there, but it just seems to me it's a place where the population has maybe thousands of years of understanding how to deal with invaders, and one of the ways is simply to wait them out.
And I think you're right. I think you're right. They're disconnected in ways, and what binds them is, I guess, their culture, religion. So even though, like I said, we're like I said, being intruders, they still feel you don't belong there. Except when this happened, it caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
I think the younger people, which we were mostly dealing with, had resigned to we would be there.
Hmm.
So wow, like I said, it's criticism all the way around. I think they just got used to us being there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds perfectly logical, human nature. Because you keep hearing, well, why didn't they get out? They knew that this was coming. But I wonder, besides the bureaucratic mess and the chaos, it's just that there's a human denial. People just don't want to think about that, right? They just like, no, we're going to be
Right.
fine. They're not going to really leave. Do you think that's potentially part of it?
Oh, definitely. And it's a different culture. And I mean, of course, that goes without saying, but I'm saying, but where I'm going is, it's, I want to say it's crooked up and down. And, I mean, you can find crooks everywhere, but you're not going to consistently find a crook, say, um, in the ministry. You're not going to consistently find crooks in as doctors. You're not going to consistently find crooks, say, I don't know, say the post office. But with them, it's up and down, So it's to the point it's like, are they cricket or just their real life? It is that wide, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard an anecdote, Harold, about that a reporter told about who was there. He said, yeah, that we would keep the story about the bridge. There was a bridge that the U.S. rebuilt for them, and within a few weeks or months, it was blown up. And then they would go to the local contractor they work with, and said, okay, we got to rebuild the bridge. And then within a few weeks or month after it was built, it was blown up again. And it turns out the guy's cousin or brother or something was in the Taliban. So it was this, Ouroboros. It was this constantly, snake eating its own tail kind of thing going on here. And it's just, I don't know. It's very Sisyphean, just got to keep pushing that rock up the hill and then rolling it back down and pushing it back up. Well, I appreciate your insights on that. I guess, so we can get into the book itself here on surviving chaos. Can you just illustrate or tell to our listeners, what were you doing there? What was your role in Afghanistan, and about how long were you there, etc.?
Yeah, I was an air traffic controller, and I did it by contract. And the company I did contract with the U.S. or the State Department to do it there for the Afghan or for that area of the country. Because we talked to far more airplanes that overflew from the U.S., Great Britain, France, you name it, Thailand, that overflew the country. So we provide that service for them. But we resided in Kabul, and part of living there, we lived just slightly outside the wire, and the place got hit, and our place got hit, and other facilities got hit that were not as fortunate as we were. But in the process, I thought, this is the end of it. I'm gonna die, and so I'm sitting there thinking, I always wanted to write a book, and I never written that book. So like, I guess I take all those memories, all those stories to my grave. But I sit there like, I vowed, to God, if I ever make it out of that, I would write that book. And Surviving Chaos, How I Found Peace at a Beach Bar, it's a result of me getting out and writing that book.
Were you at Hamid Karzai, or were you at the military base?
We were just south of Hamid Karzai.
Oh, your own. It was your own facility then. It wasn't part of the civil airport or the military airport. Is that right?
Right, right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
the civil part is like the south side of the let's say runway,
Hmm.
and the military part is like the north side of the runway.
Okay.
But
So
but
go ahead. Sorry.
and where we work, where we actually work was kind of like in between those two. We worked kind of on the south side of the runway, but we worked it all civil and the military right there.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Kind of caught in the middle there. It's an interesting metaphor too, isn't it?
Right.
So let's move forward. The book is, and by the way, the book is gorgeous. The cover is wow. It's beautiful, and it's a great volume. It reads quickly. The but it's an interesting conceit the way you do this. And Harold, pardon the silly question, but it reads so much like fiction, but it's not fiction, is it?
It's not fiction at all.
So let's go to the inspiration here for this. Now you did survive this traumatic experience. You survived suicide attack in Afghanistan, but then when we join our hero, when we join you, you're on a beach. It was where were you? I'm sorry, was it Thailand? Where were you? You were on a beach,
Right. It's not,
and 70-something-year-old gentleman walks up to you, and I get the impression when I read this at first that he was annoying you.
yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sitting there in my own world. Collecting. Trying to collect myself, and you're thinking every day that wow, I'm alive, kind of thing. And this guy obviously had been observing me. This older white guy, and so I'm a little distant, like kind of like I don't know you, you don't know me, just I don't know, just being abrasive. And he finally, talked me into having a drink, and it went from there. He wanted to know about my life and everything that I experienced when that I was under duress or under that suicide attack. I started to pour out to him.
And the book is each chapter is it's a new it's a excuse me, it's a new reverie and a memory. But what we get down to, where we get back to though, is you have these experiences, but also you through surviving this traumatic attack, and then through this catalyst, which is this man on the beach who let's be honest, plies you with drinks. He buys you drinks to hear your
Yes, he
story.
did.
My kind of guy, by the way. And you arrive at something about your childhood that you'd never fully explored. I mean, and we don't have to give away everything here, but is there parts of this you'd like to share with us about what you found?
Well, yeah, it took me a lot of years to realize how evil my aunt was, how manipulative she was. Um, it took me years to realize I wasn't good at socializing with people, and and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And after pouring that, it became evident, and talking to Dylan, it became evident that where I grew up, growing up with a schizophrenic mom who, I mean, took pleasure to embarrass me, or not only she had her episodes, but she made sure I caught all of it, basically, and they some of them may not have been real, but she made sure she stuck it to Harold, and and it traumatized me for years, and
Sure.
I and I hid it, as best I could when I got out of my town, but it was still buried there, and it was still eating at me. And I was still poor at socializing or even communicating in some regard.
And you grew up in Mississippi, in Columbus. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Columbus,
Um,
Mississippi, and you spent a good chunk. Well, really, what the first first 25 years of your life there, right?
right, right.
And excuse me, a little tickle in my throat there. Excuse me, but you can look back and realize though that you grew up in, as if you don't mind me saying, an abused child.
Right.
And I know a little bit about this, and I know that children, particularly if you catch them at the right age, and I don't mean that in a nice way, but if the abuser catches them at the right age when they're still forming and becoming their own little human being, there's certain ages where they need certain kinds of nurturing and they need security, and they what they don't need is to be ghosted or abused or yelled at or hit or all those things, because unfortunately if that happens enough consistently at those ages when a child is maturing into a little person and not just kind of this vessel that's being filled with whatever the environment is surrounding it, it can lead to problems that can be lifelong, well into adulthood, which in some places or some people can mean that they will repeat those same things and visit them upon their spouse or their children or their friends. Does that feel like an accurate description?
Oh, most definitely. The difference in my book, Surviving Chaos, I didn't want to show just the drama. I wanted to show some of the causes or some of the examples. Like when I talked about some bullying and how I reacted.
Yeah.
Like one, I talked about throwing piss on a guy. I talked about trying to date and how bad I was. So not only was I bad at, but I showed examples. I gave stories of they were funny and they're funny, even the funny now. But how my warped sense of socializing or dating was, and some of the dates I had. So and once you read them, you'll see they're wild, they're funny. Um, so I want to show a lot of that side more than just say, "Woe is me."
Right.
You
Right.
know, some of the episodes my mom had, I wanted to show how you call it, how they would hit you out of nowhere. Just it would come, and or how her outbursts, and some of it was funny, but they weren't funny then.
Yeah.
but
Oh,
but I wanted to kind of give example, kind of paint it for the reader more so than just say this person had schizophrenia or I was bullied. I wanted or I was bad at date. I wanted to paint those pictures and I laid it out, and people love the stories. I mean, I'm glad they do, but once they go through it, then they realize a lot of it is masking the pain. But I wanted to get it out there differently than any dramatic story I've ever read.
right. Right. Well, Andrea Hammer with Forward Reviews says that your anecdotes are disturbing, often painful, and compelling. Startling parallels exist between stories of a bombing in Afghanistan and, quote, mayhem, unquote, encountered during his childhood, while phrases such as, quote, shaking like lambs in the woods, unquote, are used to describe his first experiences elsewhere, and warden of that asylum evokes difficult memories. But and I can see that, and that's the thing, and it's awkward, Harold, for me to say this part, but you tell these, and it's a compliment. I think you know that, but you tell these things in such compelling, colorful ways. These stories about what happened, and you're right. And it's not woe is me. It's not all excuse me. It's not all woe is me. It's not this. And I think also you are definitely making sure that you are not employing a shorthand by just saying, like you just said, mom had schizophrenia. I had trouble, dating, doing these things. Um, those are great sentences, sure, but I think it goes right to people who don't understand schizophrenia. They have no idea what it is. They only know it's been on TV or the movies. But when you can illustrate what an outburst from a schizophrenic uh, is or can be, and what effect it has on a child, all the way into adulthood, that's where the word compelling becomes right there with surviving chaos. I think.
Right, right, definitely, definitely. It's a another thing I tell people. I said I can talk about successes. Even I do okay now. I can talk about success, and you either being arrogant or narcissistic, or whatever. But my book it talks a lot about losing, and I wanted to point out in a way losing is not always bad because it was the losing that kept me going. And it's a lot of losing in my book, but it's the way I lost and the way it happened and the way I approached it that I wanted to show, I wanted to bring out.
Is chaos? Is everybody living a life of chaos, and and a lot of people just don't know it?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
yeah. Hey, what do you do when you meet new people who genuinely like you and like hanging with you, but you glean from getting to know them that they have had zero these kinds of experiences in their lives? Um, because of course it's not fair to say to somebody who's been blessed with a really great upbringing and success and all that, you can't grudge them their problems even though they're dwarfed by your problems or what your problems were. But has that been difficult? Did you ever resent people who seem to quote had it easy compared to you?
A little bit. There have been times I'll be lying to say differently. Um, but one of the things that hit me right after I got out of college and what did with a lot of the burying, I realized, if you want sympathy or compassion, yeah, you're probably gonna get it, but they're not gonna invite you to the party. They're not gonna invite you out to hang out for beers too often. So I learned to start burying. Not, just don't go there.
Yeah.
You know, you won't get invited to the football game. Hey, let's get together for the Super Bowl or whatever. So
Yeah.
as bad as that sounds, it's true. You or even, and I hate to say this, but someone who's dealing with even an illness. But what's the likelihood you're gonna say, "Hey, come on to the Super Bowl," or "Hey, I got a big birthday bash this weekend. You want, it don't naturally happen. So I realized, hey, I need to bury that. Don't bring it up if you want to try to start fitting in.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I know. I understand exactly what you're feeling. You don't want to be the ER for Winnie the Pooh fans. You don't want to be ER all the time.
Right.
And sometimes, and I know this as well, that you it might lead you as in the royal you as in people who've suffered these kinds of things. It might lead to you overcompensating, and trying to be the life of the party or trying to be happy-go-lucky or constantly brushing past the kind of questions about childhood, that kind of thing. It fascinates me the way we do that. Harold, this is not your only work. Uh, you also in 2018 started your career in writing with a single book called Sleepwalking Out of Afghanistan, and I'd love to hear just a little bit about that one.
Yeah, actually, that was the first version of this book, and Surviving Chaos better edited, more stories, and be honest, it's more enlightening. It's not a little bit more funny, even though Sleepwalking is still along that same, you know, zany humor, and still had the traumatic experience. Um, but yeah, it's better. Surviving Chaos is better done. Yeah.
And you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the book has won a few awards. So it's I've done a few more things with it than I did with Sleepwalk.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, and it's great when you can take something like that and build on it and move forward. I've done that myself with a few things. I've incorporated some older stuff into some newer stuff, and not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. They make it pretty clear this is previously published or something. But yeah, that's excellent. So you also have a third work, but it's not under your name. It's called Fool Me Thrice. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, and I won't say all the ego, but it's a yeah. I wanted to do a fiction book. I figured I had one of those in me. So it's about this guy that's who's a womanizer, and he inherited a lot of money, but through his womanizer, he lost it. So he's trying to find himself and find love. And and going through it, he makes a lot of the same mistakes. Even though he meets two great women, and he's torn between it. But then a lot of his experiences go back from where he thought he was the womanizer, but they were actually using him. So it's a good story, and I'm trying to do a follow up to it. And I guess I want to say I find it more funny, and people find it funny and romantic, and it's a big twist in there near the end.
I love this. I think it's fun, and it's done under a pen name, Dean Conan, correct?
Right.
Yeah, he's got his own life of his own. You can just check that out, folks. You can check the about the author page on that one. It's pretty cool. Um, so Harold, as we're wrapping up here, man, I've really enjoyed. I want you to know, I just like your tempo. I like the way you tell the story. I like the turn of phrase. I'd love to ask you, if you don't mind, and here we go with the technical question. But do you find that you write in big spurts like this, drawing on memory, or did it take you a while to really draw each of these chapters, therefore these memories, out to put into the book?
The story itself, let's say Sleepwalking, took me about a year, about 13 months. And there was spurts, like you said, you're right. Um, and in Surviving Chaos actually is a compilation of two books, Sleepwalking and one that was going to be The Bicycle Lady, which was directly at my mom and schizophrenia. So I
Right.
kind of morphed the two books and took the better part and rebuilt Surviving Chaos.
Well, it's a great story. I have to ask you a question here, and we'll see how you do with this one. How are you?
I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm I'm a laid back person. Yeah, yeah. I enjoy the writing, enjoy the attention that the book bring, of course, but I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, and would you say the books were instrumental in that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There's a story that in Surviving Chaos called Dinner at Two. And in writing that one, I found so much peace. It was like it sounds weird, but it was like the resentment, or I guess you can say, of everything I went through, it turned. And in that chapter, I expose how I guess me, my dad had turned, which, it was a challenge itself, but meeting him and trying to come to grips with him and everything I had lived so far, that story, just the way I spit it out there, I liked it because it was so on point.
Hmm.
And it made me feel sense of relief. It was weird. It was weird.
It's well, these relief valves are out there. I think for victims of trauma, it's just a question of, do you see them, and are you ready to see them? And then something sometimes the most innocuous thing you could do, at least in my experience, helps you turn those valves off, and then the steam goes away and the pressure goes away, and things that are a byproduct of it, like resentment, start to fade out. There's a great line Michael Ondaatje wrote for The English Patient. It's a great novel. Say what you will about the movie, I like the movie, but the Willem Dafoe character, was hell bent on killing the English Patient because all these things, and that night he really wanted to. Then by morning, for a lot of reasons, it didn't happen, and he's chatting, and he just says, something along the lines of the poison drains away. And I think that can happen too if you have that right moment and you can seize that right moment and you're ready for it. The poison that is in your system, resentment, all those things, it can drain away.
You're right. That's a great way to put it. It did. It drained away. You're right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Harold, I got one last question for you, and that is, what's next?
I want to do a story about being a contractor and what I saw leaving Afghanistan. I'm not a military person. I've been contract for about almost 11 years, but what I saw was um, it was somewhat shocking, and I guess and I know military people who've been close to war, it's nothing. It's new. It's nothing new to them, but still, it was new to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's timely, obviously, but yeah, I'd love to see that, and I hope when that does materialize, that you'll come back and talk to us about it here on the show.
Sure will.
Harold Phifer, Surviving Chaos: How I Found Peace at a Beach Bar. Folks, seriously, get this book. It's marvelous. You can find it, I believe, at all the usual suspects, and there'll be links in the show notes at mgopod.com. And Harold, let me make sure I got this right. Is your website is rnrfreepress.com?
That's correct.
And that's an R, and then the letter N, then the letter R, freepress.com. But folks, don't worry about it. Don't get off the treadmill. Don't pull over the car. It'll all be in your show notes, and you can click there, and you can. There's some great stuff here, by the way. There's because it's this whole publishing outfit here. That's the link to, and there's some caps and shirts and accessories, and of course books, lots of books, and all three of Harold's books: Surviving Chaos, Fool Me Thrice, and Sleepwalking Out of Afghanistan. Harold Phifer, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think that you're a courageous person, and I am honored to have had you here on Mysterious Goings On.
I appreciate it, Mr. Greenwood.
This is Maddie Dalrymple, the author of the Ann Kinnear suspense novels and suspense shorts, and you're listening to Mysterious Goings On.
You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On. Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget, we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.